September 7th and I'm nature journaling. It's a beautiful day and I'm out here by the woods and I'm going to go look at some plants I discovered the other day. I just love nature journaling out in the woods. I have some friends that do urban sketching in the city and they complain a lot about people looking over their shoulder while they're sketching. So that's why I love to be out in the woods, because there are no eyes looking over my shoulder. And the first plant that I'm looking at right here, I think this is a sweet everlasting. So the sweet everlasting has these little tiny white flowers. That's actually the outside of the flower. The flower is this little yellow dot in the middle. And apparently you can use them like a straw flower and pick them and hang them up to dry. So maybe I'll try a sprig. And if you take the leaf and crush it, it has a nice sweet smell to it. Hard to describe, but very pleasant smelling. So this is one of the new plants that I discovered in my yard and I want to sketch. I believe this is sweet everlasting with these really pretty little yellow flowers. Well, the yellow part is small, but they look like they're white with a little bit of a yellow tip on them. Very pretty, very delicate. So I'm going to stop here a moment and sketch these. But they're right next to this wonderful patch of smartweed or polygonum. And these are the ones that kind of droop down and have little pink and white flowers. There's a big patch of them here. Very pretty. Of course, I just learned that there's a whole bunch of different kinds of smartweeds. Like there's a whole bunch of different kinds of goldenrods that are driving me crazy right now. But let's go take a look at a few more things while we're over here. And right next to the sweet everlasting is this patch of European black nightshade I had drawn before, and the little berries are still green, but supposedly they'll turn like dark blue, black. Still have some new flowers on it too. So we're going to take a walk back here. And this plant, is lamb's quarters, and it has a green flower. And I think this is an edible plant. And the ferns are turning very light color, yellow. They're almost at the end of their season, I guess. And here you can see two kinds of goldenrod side by side, very busy with bees and wasps and flies and bumblebees, cover flies. But you can see how the flowers are quite different between those and these over here. The jewelweed has a bunch of really pretty orange blossoms on it, but I don't see any seed cases yet that are ready to explode. Right here are these little white asters. I don't know what this is. I'll have to look it up. Is this a calico aster? It's such a different growth habit than the heart-leaved white asters. And here's my Indian tobacco. That's also getting to be a lighter green in color. And the pods have faded from green to like a light tan color. And here's another kind of smartweed. You can see the difference between this flower and the droopy pink ones. And this is probably going to be another aster, a different one. Okay, these asters and smartweeds and goldenrods, I guess they're here to drive me crazy. Well, I can look at this and tell you what it is. Poke. Some pokeweed. With brilliant pink stems. Look at that. And blackberries. So instead of talking about what the names of these goldenrods are, I'm just going to talk about what makes them different. And on this one, I don't know if you can see that, but this stem has little tiny hairs. Hairy stem. Ooh, there's eggs or something on the back of this. This leaf has eggs on it. Little orange eggs. Anyway, and it's got sort of a wrinkly leaf, and these flowers are not open yet. But this might be the rough stem or wrinkly leaf goldenrod. I'm not saying for sure, don't quote me. And step over here. This is the other flat top or grass-leaved goldenrod. You can see the little thin leaves on this and how the flowers are on a flat top and not a long flower head. And this is the taller goldenrod that has the smooth stem. Even though the flowers look somewhat alike, the leaves definitely have 3 main veins or 3 nerves, and the stem is smooth. So the leaves are definitely different, and the stem is definitely different. See how red the stem on this goldenrod is? And the leaf has a little foot. The bone set plant is still blooming. Some more of that asters over here. It's the evening primrose. Still has a couple of yellow blossoms on it. And the mullein, the top of that is turned quite brown. And I think there's seeds in these little brown cases. See those little tiny seeds? Oh, here's some of that sweet everlasting and the pink smartweed. And this looks like a little ragweed over here. That also has little green flowers. I can see the pink catchfly is making seeds. Interesting little seed heads. When I was over here the other day, I was talking about this plant here with the little tiny flowers on it, and I couldn't remember what it was, and probably that's because when I usually see this, it is way, way taller than this. So I believe this is horseweed. And most of the horseweed I've ever seen has been like 6 feet tall, 4 feet tall. So I still think this is a horseweed. It's just a little tiny one. And the beautiful New York ironweed is still blooming. And that's making some seeds too. I should probably pick these seeds and try and spread them around in different places. Back at the beginning of the summer, I was telling you about the bittersweet nightshade vine and how it has these green berries, but then later in the season they turn red. And there they are. Well, that's so pretty. One is still green, one is yellow, one is orange, a couple are red. Nice. And the second new plant that I found was this little patch of what I think is mint. I'd have to look it up. Some kind of wild mint. Nice little patch of it. I'm going to draw a picture of this too. On my Nature Journal page, I made a list of all the things that were blooming over on the sand mound. Smartweed, horseweed, fleabane, goldenrod, 3 different kinds, asters, maybe 2 kinds, Indian tobacco, evening primrose, pilewort, ragweed, boneset, sweet everlasting, jewelweed, pokeweed, European nightshade, lamb's quarters, catchfly, New York ironweed, and various grasses. Not bad for walking about 100 feet, is it? And that was just in one area. The wild mint that I saw was down in another area towards the woodpile where I was going to look at the bittersweet nightshade berries to see if they were turning red. I sketched a picture of the sweet everlasting while I was outside. But I had to bring in a sprig so I could put one of the blossoms under the microscope so you could see it because it's so small. And you can also see the white scales, and that's the bract surrounding the flower. And the flower is the little yellow dot on the inside. I sketched one of the jewelweed orange blossoms because I hadn't done that in my journal yet this year. And I made a note that the European nightshade berries were still green. And that the pink catchfly flowers were making seeds, and their seed heads looked a little bit like the columbine seed heads I had earlier in the year. The mint flowers were also so small that I had to bring those in to look under the zoomy microscope to see them because they were tiny, 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 tiny white ones. I'm going to hang up the sweet everlasting with this bunch of lavender I brought in the other day and see how it dries. It has a good smell, and supposedly these little white paper bracts will dry very well. So we'll see how that comes out. That's just another experiment. So that was a fun walk today. Glad I got outside to see all these things blooming. We did have a little rain, about an inch of rain in the last couple of weeks, maybe an inch and a half. It rained 2 or 3 different times. And things were blooming. So I'd like to thank you all for coming along. And happy nature journaling. Bye-bye.